This is Speak Earth. I'm Case Bradford. Thank you for tuning in to this episode with Chase Hill. Chase is the founder of The Woolshire, which is an absolutely amazing wool goods company. They specialize in wool pillows, which have an organic cotton liner. And that is absolutely tremendous because most pillows are made from polyester, and we talk about why that's important. We also discuss Chase's story. Super fascinating. He was roaming America in his younger years, searching for meaning, train hopping, wound up building a log cabin by hand. He figured, hey, if American peasants and pioneers can do it back in the day, he can do it too with the power of YouTube, and pulled it off. He's built 3 houses by hand and lived in one of them for 3 years with no electricity, no running water. It was just Chase and himself. He dove deep into the spiritual realm. I really enjoyed listening to what he learned through that experience. Seems like he is using that connection and bringing it to the world through his business, The Woolshire, the best wool pillows. I don't use a pillow personally. I sleep without a pillow, but for those who do, most people, this does seem like the best pillow, and you'll learn why in this conversation. But don't worry, it's not an entire podcast about pillows. We just riff on that for a bit, but mostly dive deep into Chase's story, which is absolutely fascinating. If you are a new listener, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. If you are returning, thank you as well. Really appreciate everyone who is lending their ears. And if you'd like to contribute, you could share an episode. That's always a good way to send me some great vibes, and leaving a 5-star review. I think that takes like 11 or 17 seconds. I feel kind of lame saying these things, but it does help. It helps me collaborate with more co-creators and reach more listeners. So those are 2 ways to contribute if you feel like it. If not, no big deal. That's cool. Thank you for listening. And without any more rambling from me, thanks again. Hope you enjoy this episode with Chase Hill. How are you?
Hey, good. Case, good to be here.
Got to connect with you. We were talking, I forget how exactly we got connected online, but found out what you're doing. Absolutely fascinating. And you've got a really cool backstory, journey, adventure of life as well that I'm excited to learn more about. So thanks for taking the time to connect with me and jam here today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And good to be here.
So I guess just to start off, The Woolshire is the name of your company. And from what I understand, you offer amazing wool pillows. Is that correct?
Yeah. Not to sound biased, but I think we have the best natural pillow on the market. We use organic Texas cotton, which is just really, really nice. Like when you get our pillow, it's just a very nice feel. And then we use locally grown Northwestern grown wool, and we just manufacture them or make them, I guess, here in our basement. And we started in December, and it's been great. It's just been really, really good. Positive vibes from the community, and really picking up. So we're really grateful for that.
Awesome. And the locally grown wool. So how did you get connected with, I guess that comes from sheep around you in Idaho somewhere. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah, we're mostly getting our wool from Montana, just about 4 hours. Our North Idaho is not like the best place for sheep. We're just between 2 major mountain ranges. And anyway, there's just not a lot of good pasture for sheep. But in Montana, just 4 hours away, it's like sheep country out there. And then, so we're getting a lot of wool from that wool mill. And then we're also getting wool from a different wool mill that's actually in Northern California. And they use Oregon wool. So we were exclusively using the Montana wool, but we kind of maxed out that capacity, which was really cool, and started supplementing the Oregon wool as well.
Wow, that is very cool. So you started out with a small local farm a few hours away in Montana, now expanding to just get wool from the next best spot. Have you visited the farm where the sheep are growing that wool?
Yeah, so the wool mill is not a farm itself. It's the guy's been a sheep farmer for years, but now he just gets like local wool basically from local sheep farmers, and then he processes it himself. He cleans it and then cards it into bats. And then same with that California mill, they get all this wool from Oregon. So they're both very picky about like what wool they get. The one even has a certification of like, oh, this has never been, sprayed with, the pasture's never been sprayed with pesticides and all these sort of things. So both of them are very quality, nice mills. The one in California is huge. They process like 1,500 pounds a day of wool,
Wow.
and the one in Montana is pretty small, but they're very cute. They're like cute older people, like with hunchbacks, and we really like them. So
Awesome. It's so fascinating. I kind of got into the whole fiber concept, just the awakening to the idea that, oh, our clothes and our couches and our bedding, it's all made of things. What are these things that they're made of? And then on one hand, you've got pretty much everything made from polyester, which, from what I understand, is some petroleum derived chemical nonsense, and probably primarily coming from overseas, China, and made in not so great conditions. The entire process, suboptimal to say the least. It was pretty eye opening for me. And they say, okay, wow, well, what are the alternatives? And you've got things like cotton and wool, like you mentioned, or other ones, hemp or leather, just like more traditional natural fibers. How did you kind of get into all this?
yeah, it was like everything, just like going down a rabbit hole. Like we think about what we eat all the time, like that's a main one. But I think as I was just getting aware, I was working in construction when I was just getting a lot of sinus headaches, working with plywood, working with hardy siding, which is like a cement fiber siding. There's just a lot of chemicals that they have to use to treat this material, a lot of glues, a lot of plastics. And, I'm cutting it with a saw, ripping things down, and just inhaling it. I refuse to, like wear a mask on the work site, and just because it's really annoying. And I wear big glasses, so they get really fogged up. Um, so I was just getting headaches a lot, and then I started looking into like, what is this? What is this stuff we're building our house out of? You look at old world buildings. You go to Europe or even like the east side of America, and they use natural materials to build. There's a lot of timber frame. There's a lot of brick, stone, and this new way is just totally, it's just quick and cheap. I mean, it's not really cheap, but it's supposed to be cheap, and so yeah, that sort of opened my eyes to like materials, environmental toxins, and then we had a baby, and then we just started looking into like clothing and like mattresses and things like that, and we were trying to find a nice like organic mattress for the baby for his crib, and he ended up co-sleeping anyway. But we were looking, and there's like brands like Snuggle Me Organic, and they're called organic, but they're like just an organic cotton case on the outside, and then it's just polyester fill on the inside, which is like seems like a little bit like a weird marketing angle. And so you smell when you get a new mattress or whatever, you smell the off gassing, like it's seeping through the outside fabric. So we were just like, let's just make like a wool mattress. We really like. I've always loved wool. I like to wear wool coats in the winter, and yeah, we just bought some wool and made a mattress, and then we were like, no, we should make wool products, and that's kind of what started us.
Wow, what a cool story, and all catalyzed by having a baby, having a son, and looking deeper into some of these things, and inspired by your time in construction to awaken to the fact that we're kind of surrounded by all these sort of strange synthetic, derivatives of what used to be more of a natural sound material. Now we're just trying to cut corners, cut costs, and we're coming to this place of like, whoa, why is everything like fractured in a way? It's not quite authentic. It's this thing that's kind of off gassing and giving us illness, and mostly it's through this intention of cutting costs and making more money, and or looking at this from every angle. Our food is going through this, our our clothing, our building materials, our bedding. And when you decided to start to make your own, what was that like? Have you ever made any bedding before? Like, how'd you come across the wool and go about actually creating the thing?
Yeah, no, we actually didn't even have any sewing experience. We had to take sewing lessons and kind of learn from there. But Yeah, I've always been kind of a DIY type guy. We built our own house, and I built a couple cabins before that. And so, yeah, I'm always like trying to take things by the horns and like hands on, try to understand how things work. Except for mechanics, I really don't like mechanics too well. But yeah, so we actually contacted a friend in Montana, a Twitter friend actually, and she hooked us up with this wool mill, and we just went and visited. We took our a trip, and Frederick was just like, I think he was like 2 weeks old, and we took this trip to Montana and visited this wool mill, and they just inspired us, and they really encouraged us, like, because they also make wool pillows. Mostly they do the carding, but they sell wool pillows on the side, and so they taught us how to make pillows, and they were just like, yeah, you should do this, and so yeah, it was just encouraging to learn from like an old timer, like passing down that knowledge, and yeah, that's kind of the how we got going. You know,
Cool. Keeping the flame alive, just getting this knowledge from, previous generations that is really important and essential to carry forward because it does have tremendous value. And we're kind of losing some of these things that I feel like, but you're bringing it forward, still making these high quality goods with your bare hands from local environments, connected to the supply chain and doing it in a way that's authentic and valuable. And it's awesome. So with the next step from there, how'd you decide to go into business doing this? And what was it like kind of selling the first few products?
yeah, we've always been trying to like come up with ideas like how can we work from home, like not like a tech job or anything. I don't have any tech experience. My computer is like 15 years old, and like even to download this Riverside, I had to update one different browser. My browser wouldn't work. Um, that's what people are like working from home now. They're like all techie and stuff. So anyway, we couldn't do that, and we've both been like rural living our whole lives. So yeah, we're kind of removed from that world a little bit. So I had been working construction. I wanted to get out of construction and do something. I've always liked just working with my hands and making quality products, like quality things, toys for my child or whatever. And yeah, when we made the mattress, the crib mattress, the wool crib mattress, we just thought like, oh, it's time. It takes time, and it takes like skill and craftsmanship and stuff. But we were like, this could be something that people would find valuable. And we know like our sources very well, and we're very transparent. And so, and we're not like some, huge company that's trying to like Snuggle Me Organics, not to rip on them again. But we're not trying to like hide anything, we're not trying to like cover things up. And so yeah, we were just like, we should just test the waters. So on my personal Twitter, I put out this idea that like we were going to do this, and I ran a poll for like logos and stuff. And um, that was just like the most receptivity I've ever gotten on Twitter. And so it was really encouraging. I was like, man, this is cool. And so yeah, it just birthed out of Twitter really, which is so weird. You wouldn't think like Twitter is the place to go to start. I mean, you see it a lot now, but you wouldn't normally think Twitter's a place to go to like start a brand or whatever. But here we are.
Wow. Yeah, it is fascinating what can happen through the internet and Twitter or X specifically. There's
Yes,
there's like a lot of enthusiasm about entrepreneurship. It's cool. It's cool. Like people are very supportive of people trying to just do new, whether it's like someone who's like really overweight going to like lose weight. People are very supportive, encouraging, and that's great because that's how that's the best of humanity. I feel like is when we're supporting each other, encouraging each other to do cool things and do new things. And I think the internet gets a lot of flack for kind of promoting or shining a light, illuminating a lot of the darkness, the dark side of mankind through various videos or trolling or there's a lot of gnarly stuff out there. So I think the internet gets a lot of flack for that, but it's also got a very cool side for those who choose to engage with it, like you did and are continuing to do, and it's definitely pretty awesome.
Yeah, it can be the best and the worst of mankind. The internet can expose that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wild place out there. And you mentioned having lived rurally and building houses and building log cabins, and we had been exchanging some emails prior to the conversation to discuss some potential topics. And you mentioned living in cabins for years, essentially off grid. When at what point in your life was that? When did all that go down?
Yeah, so I had kind of a radical youth, traveling around America searching for meaning, and I graduated high school a year early when I was 17, and I just kind of wanted to. I don't know. I was reading a lot of Jack Kerouac, and I wanted to kind of explore life without any sort of voluntary poverty. And after that was all done, I went to college. Yeah, I got a degree in humanities, and then which I don't do anything with. And then I had saved up money, and I bought. It was actually really inexpensive at the time. It was 5.5 acres for like $9,000. Really rural, no power, no nothing, and it had just been logged. It was, a timber company had logged it, and I built a log cabin there, and I kind of ran out of money as I was finishing it, so I had to work for this wood mill, and then I finished it, but I didn't have enough money to like move in, and it was very basic. So I sold the cabin on Craigslist of all places, um, and I made a little bit of money doing that, and then I bought this land up Ruby Creek in Naples, Idaho, which is where the infamous Ruby Ridge incident happened. Like I was just 20 acres or something like that away from where the Ruby Ridge incident, which happened in the 90s. But this was only like 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And, yeah, I bought the land, which was 10 acres on, Ruby Creek. It had a year-round creek going through it. It was just a beautiful piece of property that people had kind of trashed. There was just a lot of trailers there and a lot of junk. And I bought this contractor was taking this house down, and so I just bought all the material off of him and just built a cabin, a 16 by 20 cabin with all that material. So it cost me like next to nothing. Like I think I paid like $2,000 for all the materials, and he gave me like a roof package with it. So I built this cabin, and it was just very basic, like plywood floors. I didn't have any siding on the building or anything, no electricity, no water. And it was like halfway finished, and I lived in that for almost 3 years with no running water and no electricity. It was very basic.
Wow. And you live in a different place now with that you also built, or is this one built by somebody else?
Yeah, so I lived off grid for almost 3 years, and then I became a truck driver, and I started driving like regionally. Got enough money to finish the cabin. Finished it, made it very cute, very Pinteresty, and then sold it and made like a good profit on it. I lived in it for like 2 years when it was nice, so that was nice. And then now we live outside of Sandpoint, Idaho, which is about an hour from where I was before. And we got married, and then yeah, we built a house. It's an actual, like, I don't know, regular house, I guess. And yeah, we built it ourselves. We contracted out like the electricity and the plumbing and stuff like that, but vast majority we did ourselves.
Wow, cool. What's it like building houses? Sounds like you've made 3 now over the years. Did you have like learn more along the way, or just the craft of house building? Like how do not many people, I feel like a tiny percentage of people have built houses or would even know where to begin. Like how'd you even know how to do that, and what was the process like actually doing it?
Yeah, when I first started, the first cabin, it was this log cabin, and I had no construction experience at all, like zero. Like my dad didn't even teach me how to use a hammer or drill, and so there was YouTube. It wasn't as good as it is now, but there was YouTube, and then I just bought a bunch of like log cabin books, and I hired 2 guys that lived at the trailer park, a couple miles from the cabin, and they had some construction experience, And so we were all just like looking at these books, and they were like old timey books, like how to fall a tree, how to peel a tree, what type of notches to make for the logs. And so I hired out the concrete work, which was probably my best idea because no one should try to do concrete work if you haven't done it before, like because it's your foundation. It's pretty important. Um, and so there you're starting with like something that's square and you can work with. And then and then we just cut trees down. We drove them over with my pickup, and we peeled them, we dried them, and then we would just like manhandle them. They must have been 20, 22, 24 foot long logs, and maybe like 10 inches in diameter. And then we would just put them on top of the other one. Had a little like scribe, and we would cut out the notch with a chainsaw. And that was kind of my introduction to construction. It was a really it was a traditional, I guess, but not traditional today.
Wow, man, that's wild. What was the hardest part of that process?
Well, once you get like so high, you're having to like do awkward things with the logs. You're gonna have to like lift it up, and one person's gonna have to like climb up, and you're gonna have to like hand him the other log. And we had some close calls where we almost dropped a log on our friend, but he luckily like fell into the ditch underneath, so he didn't get crushed. So it was pretty stressful. But once we got like the base down, it was fine.
What did that change, if anything, about the way you perceive sort of ancient builders or ancient buildings, like these large? I mean, on one hand, you've got these large Mesolithic structures, like the great structures, like the Great Pyramids, which is pretty much mind blowing for everybody. But then you've also got these amazing sort of medieval era castles and churches that are also a little bit earlier in time and maybe a little bit less impressive, but still just absolutely mind blowing to think that people did that without modern equipment, mostly by hand.
Yeah, I was taking a very like American pioneer approach, which was just like uneducated peasants coming over to the West or whatever, and building cabins. And I figured if they could do it, like I could do it since I have some resources now. But no, looking back on ancient civilizations, like they knew more. I think they knew more than we ever give them credit for. In fact, I think they might know. They might know more than us in some capacity. Like their precision and like tools just make us lazy, because we're able to use the tool to perform that same sort of craftsmanship. But yeah, it's mind blowing to look at some of these old buildings.
Yeah, it is, especially if you have any idea about like what it is like to build even basic log cabin, which sounds like it's definitely a difficult undertaking, challenging to do. And then these people, I guess they're probably people, were building these, just the Great Pyramids, these massive multi-ton slabs of stone that are just somehow fit perfectly together and also aligned with these celestial bodies. And how'd they know all
Right.
about that? It's pretty mind-blowing. And even what you've done is mind-blowing to think that you were cutting down these trees and then built a house out of it. I think a lot of people would, think that's a completely impossible undertaking, right? But you've got the internet, which is going to help guide you, and you've got some help, and then you've got just the will to be able to build that. And then you moved on to further houses. Did you get a little bit better each time, sort of with the experience and with the understanding of house building?
Yeah, I ended up just moving into like stick framing, which is just using dimensional lumber to build, which it's really not that hard. Like once you get like the basics down, it's not crazy. There's nothing like really that crazy. You just kind of have to know like the basics. And so, yeah, I had a little bit of help building my cabin up in Naples, Ruby Ridge cabin, and he sort of gave me some pointers too. And then I started working like some construction side jobs here and there, and picked up more and more skills and how to use different saws and things like that.
Cool. And living in the cabin with no power, no water for 3 years, How'd that experience sort of, what were some of your takeaways from that?
Yeah, 3 years is a really long time to live, like in isolation. I mean, I'd go to town now and again and things like that, but it's you really get to know yourself. Like, there's no hiding, there's no distractions, and when when you have to encounter yourself for that long, you just are forced to get to know yourself, your weaknesses, your strengths, and yeah, it was a really special time. Like, I look back on it with a lot of fondness. It was also like very depressing, especially towards the end. Winter would be very depressing because the sun goes down like by like 3:30 here in the afternoon in wintertime. And the church I was going to, they use beeswax candles. So they would always give me like the remnants of the candles. So I just have like all these candles lighting my wall. I had like those old world like candle, the ones that mount to your wall, and you could just light them to kind of illuminate things.
Wow.
And I read a lot of books, and I did have a cell phone. It was a flip phone, and if I like put it like in a certain position in my window, like I could get like 1 or 2 bars. And so I'd call my mom or my brothers or something now and again, and I would charge it in my car. I turn my car on and plug the battery in. But yeah, it definitely challenges you. I don't think many people would be able to do it now. Like, I think it's really, even for like a couple weeks, it's like really like, at first I was really kind of scared, because you're just like out in the woods. You don't know anything. Like, I didn't know my neighbors, I mean, I couldn't see them, but I didn't know where they were. Um, I didn't know anybody there. And, it's a little bit you just go to sleep and you hope everything is okay once you wake up. So I just kind of conquered like any fears I had of, like the unknown. And yeah, special time, could be depressing sometimes, but overall a good experience.
What were you doing for the food, water, just like the basic elements of survival? How did you kind of go about cooking or sourcing just your nutriment on the daily basis?
Yeah, I had a little camp stove, like a little Coleman 2 burner, and then I just had a cast iron pan. Um, and sometimes I would use to try to save the propane, because I was literally living off of a few $1,000s a year. It would just be like side work I'd pick up because I really didn't want to work. I just wanted to kind of focus on growth and spiritual growth. And so like in the winter, I had my stove going, my wood stove. I'd cook on that sometimes, and that's how I would bathe. Which I really didn't bathe that much. I had really long hair, and I wouldn't bathe that much. But I would heat up a big pot of water on the stove, and then take like a sponge bath in like a little metal ring that I'd stand in. And then yeah, I would just like I had in the summertime I had this cooler that I dug into the hillside. This was like very rednecky. Because bears ended up stealing this cooler from me, but it worked for a while. I would just buy ice blocks and put them in the cooler and like keep like dairy products and things like that in there. And that worked. That would work for like a week, keeping it cool. And then just a lot of like pancakes, rice, kind of basic sort of things. I didn't eat a lot of meat during this time, just because it was like in the winter I could keep it frozen fine, but in the summer it was a little bit more difficult. I'd have to like buy meat and then eat it the next day, pretty much. And then the creek was this year-round beautiful creek, and that's how I got all my water, drinking water. And I would go down there with some jugs and carry them up the hill, 5-gallon jugs in each hand, and it was a good workout.
Nice. Wow. Yeah, it really is a fascinating life choice to choose to go and live like that. What was the catalyst or the reason for why you chose to live in that way?
Yeah, I've always sort of liked mountain men and kind of like their, I don't know, lifestyle, their recordings of living wild and living like basic. And then I was also like experiencing, like I was growing spiritually, trying to like discover my faith more. And so I had looked at like Orthodox spirituality, like hermits and people who live in solitude, and I was reading a lot of like lives of the saints and things like that. And so I was trying to like maybe like halfway delusionally, like, but I was trying to kind of experience or like mimic that lifestyle and try to learn more about myself. I've always been kind of a weird guy, so it was I guess it helped to isolate myself a little bit more.
Me too. Yeah, always been a bit of a odd duck, and certainly had fantasies of escaping. I think a lot of people have a fantasy of doing exactly what you did, and you actually went and you did it. You just went, and I guess a parallel that's coming to mind is I think some people go and live sort of a monastic life in sort of with monks, and they do a lot of meditating and things of that nature. But this was more of a journey of solitude, and I think probably a lot more courageous what you did versus something like living with a monastery, because everything's sort of already set up there. But do you think you found what you were looking for in that part of your life?
Yeah, I think so. I grew a lot. Like I was forced to grow a lot and get to know myself more. And then, yeah, and I had experienced a lot of like, I mean, I did it to myself. It's my own fault. But I had, before this, I was traveling across America. I'm like hitchhiking and jumping trains. So I had experienced a lot of rejection from society because, you're this guy on the side of the road with long hair. And, of course, nobody's like, people reject you just like off the bat, which is fine. Like, I understand that. And even to some extent, like, I understand, like, if my wife and babies were in the car, like, I'm not going to pick up some guy that's looks like kind of crazy. Um, so I guess that sort of prepared the way a little bit, like living like that and like living as kind of like an outcast of society sort of like prepared the way for like more isolation. And yeah, I definitely grew a lot in my faith, and I think I didn't become like more spiritual person, I guess. I think I just got to know myself better and was able to be honest with myself, instead of looking at myself as like this spiritual warrior who's able to like transcend reality or something. I think I was able to just kind of like get to know myself and like be humble a little bit more, actually.
Beautiful. I'd love to learn more about your perception or your coalescence with this concept of spirituality, because it's such a I've always been fascinated by it myself. I grew up agnostic, so there was never any sort of talk about it in any way. And then when I got to college, kind of got introduced to Buddhism, which I found absolutely fascinating, primarily because the art that was created under the belief system of Buddhism was just mind blowing. Like these giant statues that were carved out of cliffs for generations, and just to think, wow, what would drive a population of people to do this, grandfather, father, son, all chipping away at this mountainside to form a statue. Like, what would drive somebody to do that? It's always been fascinating to me. And then you look at these medieval churches and the amazing stained glass windows that were just stretching from floor to ceiling. What would drive people to build these beautiful churches and these amazing stained glass windows? And I've never really been able to wrap my mind around the concept, maybe because I came to it too late, or just haven't had an inclination towards that. But I did sort of formulate my sort of belief system over time, or something that just made sense to me in the realm, because I think we do all have a void in the that part of our lives, to have something to fill that void. For some it's God, for some it's Buddha. I guess there's hundreds of different paths, ways to the waterfall, I suppose. But I'm curious what you made of it after all that time and deep focus on it.
Yeah, I think similarly, you look at every culture, throughout history, they've all been spiritual. Like they've all had some quest for, the spiritual whatever. And yeah, I think agnosticism and atheism is more of like a modern day thing. It's more of like, postmodern enlightenment and whatever. But I think atheists and stuff look at spiritual people as kind of like brainwashed or whatever. But I think it's the opposite. I think whatever spiritual path you are, like personally, I'm Eastern Orthodox. I believe, like I believe Orthodoxy is like, I guess the most true. But I don't think that other religions don't have some level of truth in them. And so, um, but yeah, I think atheism is, and not to rip on any atheists, like people have journeys and things, but I think it's kind of limiting, because you're saying like nothing. You're saying like there's nothing. Um, and I think there's obviously something, like everybody knows it, and every like culture and history has known it. They built these, like you said, they built these monuments and performed sacrifices, killing people for like whatever, like something has been going on. And I think it's really limiting to say nothing. I think that's the most limiting. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what the question was. Sorry, I'm not intended there.
That's all right. Yeah, I basically just want to riff a little bit about spirituality as a concept, and then how it plays out in your life now, and how that has sort of shaped and molded, given your adaptation to that realm. As you said, seeing yourself as a spiritual warrior for a while, and really being driven by that aspect of life, really deep, in a really deep and meaningful way. Ever since you were 17, graduated high school early, and started train jumping, you were searching for meaning, and it led you into a cabin in the woods that you built with your bare hands for 3 years, with no electricity and no water, in search of this thing that you said that you seem to find. Is it a place within you, or is it a sort of a way of seeing the world, or something else entirely?
Yeah, I mean, Christ says the kingdom of God is within us, and I think that's true. I think like finding that within yourself, like in the image of God, we have this capability. We also have the capability for like to be totally evil. And I think when we look at people and we think like we read these terrible stories on the news or whatever, and we see somebody that's totally evil, I think we always just kind of judge them like as if they're something else, but they're also just us. Like they're a human like us. We're capable of that same evil. Like there's, maybe a different experience, maybe whatever. I mean, whatever they did was evil, right? It was wrong. But I think to look at humanity as having the capability of sainthood and having the capability of, like devilish behavior, like we all have that within us. And to be like truly illumined, to become like, to follow the one path, I think that's, I don't have, I wanted to be able to achieve like some spiritual loftiness, but I think in the end, I just was able to be more honest with myself, and kind of see myself where I'm at. Like I have struggles, I have, issues that I have to overcome. But I know what they are. Like I know where I struggle. I know where my faults are, and I'm able to look at them and hopefully change them with time. So, I would like to say I've achieved some great spiritual loft, but in fact, I went from like praying like 6 hours a day, meditating 6 hours a day, um, to now maybe like 20 minutes a day. So, I didn't, but I think the 20 minutes a day now, at least I try for it to be more intentional than the 6 hours a day, like, um, there's a parable. Christ talks about this parable of this man in the temple, and he's like praying and praying, and he's standing in the front, and he's rambling on like, "Thank you, God, for this, this, this." And Christ refers to that man as praying among himself, like he's like praying to himself. And I think that's kind of what I was doing a little bit, kind of like glorifying myself a little bit. And yeah, I think it's good to take a step back. And I had some struggles of faith and things like that. I also got very depressed towards the end, but I feel much healthier now. Like I feel like I can look at life with a much clearer vision, and yeah, and the Lord has been very good to me. Like I'm very blessed. Like I've got a beautiful family. I've got a nice business. Um, got a nice house, and I'm really blessed.
Love to hear that, and such a beautiful journey that you went on as well. And a few things coming to mind. One is that parable you shared, and you mentioned earlier, some sort of potential delusion. And I'm something that fascinates me is this idea that that we have this perception of spirituality of like, oh, I'm going to go into a cave or on a cliff and just like meditate and pray. but in a way that is like, seems sort of delusional, because you're detaching yourself from society, like, and it is almost self, like, what is really happening there, you know? And now you've got an amazing business where you are offering high quality wool pillows, much better than the alternatives. And in a way, you're praying with your pillows, right? You're contributing to society by engaging with the chaos of the world and not isolating yourself and praying, which is like, to me, what you're doing now is much more spiritual, actually working, striving to improve the world, than like isolating and like detaching. I don't know what you think of all that. You're the one living it, you know?
Yeah, no, I think I agree. Like, I think there's a place for like people to be isolated, and I think the prayers are powerful. And then I think there's the rest of us that we can like do something good and like make the most of our what we have. And that's what we're trying to do with the Woolshire. Like, we're trying to make like quality American wool goods and like change the world for the better. Like, you know, so that I don't want to get into that too much, but we're trying to just like do like quality work and for the glory of our community, the glory of God. That's what we're trying to do.
It's beautiful. It's, to me, religion as a tool. I see why atheists reject it. There have been so many stories, horror stories, that in the name of religion, and maybe that's being promoted by the mainstream media for some nefarious purpose, or because it gets clicks, you know, it gets attention. People love to, you know, hate on things, but at the same time, there's a tremendous amount of good. And if we look at, like, you could even say religion is a tool. It's a tool for us to better ourselves as men, as mankind, as humanity, to become more, to become better. I think we all go through the day with various voices in our head, various impulses, urges. You could say, oh, that's the primal mind, the lizard brain. And we've got this higher self, you know, maybe it's the neocortex, this thing that makes us human, this small part of our brain that can be enlightened and be altruistic and give back to the community, put ourselves aside, be selfless. And you know, that's maybe what makes us unique as animals on this planet in a lot of ways. And who knows why that is, but in a lot of ways, the spirituality is this sort of open question that we all get to play with and figure out, how can we be the best person that we can be in a lot of ways. And it is beautiful to see that, you know, many of us are grappling with this and coming to a certain place where we're able to, and it does feel like a grapple every day. Like there's no, it's like every day is a new challenge. And a lot of days we're just, you know, we're the victim, you know, we're the ones who are being beaten down by, you know, the devil, you could say, or these demonic sort of thoughts and impulses, and this dark side that is not at all easy to get a grip on all the time. But there are also some days where we can conquer it. And then for me at least, it's like, wow, what did I do? What did I do in that day? Or like these days where I was able to get a grip on it. It's a fascinating game that we all play.
Yeah, yeah. Man has been given this like dominion over the animals, and the dominion isn't like, it's not to like lord over the animals, but it's like to create this harmonious system. And like we see what that could look like. Like, that could be beautiful, like regenerative agriculture and things like that. Like, it can absolutely be beautiful, where it's a beautiful system. You know, if we're just trying to like rule over and like impose our self-will in this evil way, it can look very ugly, and it can look like, you know, like cattle, you know, consolidated cattle lots. And not that that's like the most evil thing in the world, but like, you know, it can look like concentration camps, it can look like all sorts of other terrible things, or it can look beautiful, and it can look like we've created you know, a society of harmony and peace and love.
That is really the driving force in our lives. If we allow it to be, we can all be a part of that sort of vibration or ethos or vision, where there's this much more beautiful world that I feel like is just out of reach. If we could just get more people to sort of awaken or turn on or choose to be a part of it. And it seems to me, I was thinking recently about the concept of sin, where it's like, we are all familiar with this idea, like, oh, there are these sins, you know. Must have been a mind-blowing concept when it was first created, right? Like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
greed, lust, lazy, slothness, or, you know, laziness. And then we see that, you know, play it on a micro scale. We know that it hurts our life in this small scale when we do these things. And then now there are people with so much power, like Bill Gates, for example. If he decides to do something out of greed, forcing, a medicine on people that hasn't been well tested and has shown to do damage, and all of a sudden that's playing out on a grand scale because he has so much power. All these people are dying and being maimed by a quote medicine that wasn't properly tested and has been amazingly profitable for him and his people because greed. And I'm curious what you think of the concept of sin and sort of how it's playing out in today's world.
Yeah, Bill Gates is a doozy. Um, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think we're all capable of like great evil. We're all capable of great good, and when we're putting ourselves first, I think we're sinning. Like in the way of like not like caring for yourself and like looking out for yourself, but I mean like when you're putting your own like selfish ambitions first. You know what I mean? There's a difference. Like caring for yourself and eating good food is not selfish. You're just creating good food and good energy for your body to create more good energy. But yeah, when we look out for others and we look out for our families, our community, we look out for like how what we do affects others. Like Christ says, the two greatest commandments are to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself, and that the entire law can be summed up in these two commandments. So like you think of that, it's like, well, if you're loving God and you're loving your neighbor, like you're not sinning. And I think as long as you have those two things, like you're good to go.
What does God mean to you?
That's a heavy question. Yeah, there's a prayer in the Orthodox Church. It's prayed like it's the Trisagion prayers. They're prayed before any other prayer is prayed. So it's like an intro prayer for the prayer. And it goes, O heavenly King, the Comforter, the Spirit of Truth, who art everywhere present and fillest all things, treasury of blessings and the giver of life, come and abide in us and cleanse us from every impurity and save our souls, a good one. I think that's kind of like, that contains the essence of who God is. Like, God is everywhere. He's not something that can be bound. He's not something that can be bound in our mind. His energy, it fills everything. It fills everything. And it's easy to put God in a box and try to like create. I don't think we'll ever know the fullness of God. I think it's beyond comprehension. And but what I do know, like through like studying theology and like through like own personal experiences, I believe God is the Holy Trinity and exists everywhere and is not found nowhere.
Beautiful. That is a wonderful prayer. Even just hearing you say that uplifted my spirits, and
Yeah.
it illuminates the power of words in just like a fundamental way. It's like even the concept of prayer. It's like we can string together these words and phrases, and it changes the way that we see the world and interact with everything at a fundamental level. It's really powerful.
Yeah. 100%.
Man. Well, we went to some deep places in this one, and wide ranging, wide ranging conversation as well. My mind is a little bit blown, and I really enjoyed this conversation. Is there more you'd like to say about anything that we covered, anywhere that we went, any other sort of topic or idea that's coming to mind?
Yeah, I didn't expect the conversation to go this way, and I thought we were just going to talk about pillows or traveling, but this was great. I mean, I love organic conversations. Like, I feel like it's the most real, So I'm satisfied with. If you have any more, questions about pillows or anything, that's fun too.
Beautiful. Well, let's talk about, let's focus on the pillows for a bit, because I am curious. I feel like we didn't quite get through that, and then what we'll do is nail down this podcast, which I have also thoroughly enjoyed this episode. So the pillow itself, I know that it's made from cotton, case on the outside, wool on the inside. And where can folks go to check it out or pick one up? And what is it like from your end making these and sending them out to people?
Yeah, I don't want to turn this into an advertising thing, so it was a great conversation. So yeah, I won't even talk about it really. Let's just our company is the Woolshire. We make handmade wool pillows, and you can read about it on our website. And so we're hoping to like get into more American wool goods eventually. So that's kind of the vision for the company. We kind of like to just get into the whole wool space and bring it back to American wool quality products. And so that's where we see the Woolshire going, and we're super excited to like be part of the space and to be part of like the awakening of natural fibers and all of that. So yeah, the Woolshire.com, and our handles are just the Woolshire.
Beautiful. And I'll have everywhere to find Chase and the Woolshire down below in the show notes. And this was a powerful conversation. I really enjoyed it. We connected over a mutual appreciation for quality goods, natural fibers, just doing good in the world. And I've thoroughly enjoyed connecting with you and learning more about your story and listening to you share your wisdom. And it's been great. So appreciate everything that you've shared with me here today, and everything that you're doing out in the world. Keep on keeping on. It's awesome stuff, and appreciate your time. Thank you, Chase.
Yeah. Thanks, Case. Thanks for having me on. Great conversation.